Good Sunday morning. This is hashtag everyone talking about hashtag everything. I'm Kate Doherty with the Radical Ryan, Practically Perfect Penny, and the lovely Laura have loofed and poofed.
Still gone.
Loofed and poofed.
Still
That'll be
gone,
okay.
it's all right.
They'll show back up.
They'll be here eventually.
Probably next week when we have Matt Halley on.
Yeah.
Talking about the car show that we have coming up August 1st. Thank you, Pepsi, Neiman Foods, and everybody. And the concert, August 16th.
Yep.
4, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 local bands with free food, Goodwill donation only, super fun at the Wyman's Pavilion in Hannibal. So if you're listening to the show, mark your calendars for August 1st, the car show, and August 16th, the concert series at Wyman's Pavilion. And Matt will be here next week, and you will get to hear all about it.
Oh, big time.
The rest of the story.
The rest of the story.
Yeah. And so we talked about the Baby's First program last week, and we're super excited about that. But this past weekend, do you know what this past weekend was?
This past weekend was 4th of July weekend.
Yes, which is absolutely my favorite holiday. Did you know that?
You know what? Being with you for as many years as I have now, yes, I do.
Yes,
I
yes.
do. Big time 4th of July person.
So, and if you're listening to the show today and you're saying, why is she so excited about the 4th of July? Well, we get to celebrate America. Happy birthday, America. That's pretty cool. You get to eat food.
That's right, a lot of it.
You get to hopefully be in the sun.
Yes.
I mean, unless it rains, and then,
Man.
And then you get to blow stuff up.
How do you not like blowing stuff up?
I don't even know how you don't like blowing stuff up.
Beautiful thing.
I mean, and you don't have to buy gifts or presents or anything. You just got to bring a dish. Bring a dish.
Seriously.
Eat some fried chicken. I mean, it's fantastic. Best ever.
I love it.
However, just because I like to harp on things, as you know, I do like to harp on things.
You do every once in a while.
I do. Exposure, exposure, exposure.
Big time stuff.
Yeah. So, going to tell a little story.
Please.
4th of July is my favorite holiday. And when my sweet little pea pod, old Elliot, was born 17 years ago, we had a little bit of a problem.
Uh-oh.
Because you know what? He was not a fan. Not a fan. Not exactly a fan of the big boomers in the sky. And to be fair, actually, when I married Tony 20 years ago, my little Miss Olivia, she was not a fan. And I was like, oh no, she hated him. However, I'm like, okay. All right, this cannot be happening. Now, so with Olivia, what we did is we're like, honey, we're going to teach you to like fireworks. And she's like, what?
I don't like that, you know?
That's the typical child. Like, no, I don't want fireworks. No, I don't want fireworks. And so what we did is we took her out to my parents' lake. I think this may be a confessional, so Mom, Dad, if you're listening, I did it. Anyway, and we bought fireworks, some things to blow up.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're there, and so I have Olivia sit on my lap in the truck, and we have the windows rolled up, and Tony goes out there and he starts lighting up fireworks. Well, she can't, and I kind of have my hands over her ears so she can't hear. Anyway, so suddenly we liked it because we weren't hearing all the big noises. And then as kind of time went on, we, kind of tried to, once she got over it, and I don't know if she'd been around where it had scared her at one point in time, but then she decided it wasn't half bad, and it really was pretty if you were sitting, on my lap and watching.
Yeah.
Okay. However, and this is where the confession part comes in, one of the things we didn't realize, we kind of blew up one. And we're like, it didn't really do, it wasn't like a big
boom.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of didn't really wonder why that happened.
Yeah.
Well, we had bought, and you can't even get this many anymore, but at the time, we had bought not one, but 2 of the parachutes.
Oh.
Except they were in, the case.
Oh.
They were a 300 shot.
Oh.
Yes, of
better
parachutes. So it wasn't meant to be shot at nighttime.
Oh.
It was meant to be shot during the daylight. So hence why
Makes
it just
sense.
kind of went up and they went poof. You know what I mean? It was like just
Didn't
one
really
little.
do anything, yeah.
No, didn't really do anything. And Tony heard stuff hitting the ground. He's like, "What on earth?" And so we kind of took the lights and we shined them across the pasture. And we hadn't shot just one box of these off. We'd shot 2 boxes.
Oh, good
so
Lord. Oh, good Lord.
across the pasture in the dead of night now, were 600 parachutes in my dad's hayfield. Yeah. Yep. Sorry. Confession, Dad. It was me. I did it. I did it
Oh, my
to
God.
help Olivia not be scared of 4th of July. So
Makes
we can
sense. It's for a good cause.
So yeah, that truly happened. She now loves the 4th of July. Loved it ever
Yeah.
after that. However, then, whatever, 4 years later or 5, somewhere in there, Elliot comes along.
Good Lord.
Elliot comes along.
What are you gonna do?
And I'm like,
It's not
well,
right.
what do you mean? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, my mom and dad have kind of this room you can go and you can watch them from the house, but fireworks were not meant to be watched from the house.
No.
Fireworks are meant to be under the night sky in a lawn chair. Anyway, so it was very interesting because everybody said when Elliot was little, like, you don't need to make him go out there. He can stay in here with me. And I think maybe 1 year I let that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I was like, no, this isn't going to work. This is not going to work. We're going to have to figure this out.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, when I say we worked, like, we had headphones and then we had, like blankets we would put over and we had, so that he could be out there with us.
Yeah.
Now, he didn't actually have to watch them, but anyway, this is where that exposure piece comes along.
Mm-hmm.
There were people who would say, oh, that's so cruel that you continued to expose him to something that you were scared of. And I'm kind of glad Penny's not here because she might have told me she might not agree with us. Anyway, we weren't bad. We held him. You know what I mean? Like we had like.
You did everything
The things on, but he had to be out there with us experiencing it. Yeah. And the reason I bring this up was that easy? It was not always easy. And I think part of it is we, believe it or not, as loud as I am, we're a quiet family. We aren't like big. We aren't screamers and shouters. I think some people come from screamy and shouty families, and
That's
I'm not.
us.
Are you a screamer?
100%.
Oh yeah, we aren't screaming
I'm
and
a
shouty.
very
at all.
loud individual, which now has turned my kids into very loud individuals.
Yeah.
And the wife just looks at me and goes, "You created this." So yes, we are a very loud family.
Okay. Well, we evidently are. Weirdly,
Yeah.
even with me, we are not.
That's awesome.
But over time, it took several years.
Right.
And ultimately, because we kept at it, even when it wasn't easy. Elliot now loves the fireworks, loves them. But we had, just so you know, we had the same issue with haircuts. Didn't like the sound of the buzzy because I took him to somewhere where they had the Flowbee, the vacuum.
Yeah.
Don't do that with little ones. You don't have boys, but I'm here to tell you, don't take your kid for their first haircut with a Flowbee. They will PTSD all the way.
Not about it.
Yeah, no, they will hate it, and you will spend the next 5 years trying to work through that. And now he can go in and get a haircut anywhere.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was not pretty. And then we had the same issue because I know you laugh at this since my kid loves every sports, and he's like every sport known to mankind, and he's like the little mini Ryan. However, my family and my husband, my family, we aren't big jocks.
Yeah.
And weirdly, almost every single one of my friends, yourself included, is a freaking jock. Yeah. I do not know. I'm like some kind of a magnet. And I'm like, and they're like, do you know the latest score? I don't have a freaking clue.
No.
I'm not even sure what you called the freaking
What are you talking
thing.
about?
What
game are you speaking of?
I have no idea what game. And they'll be like, what do you mean? It was the
biggest game of the year.
I'm like, okay, well, I have no idea. No idea. And so anyway, when we started to go into school, like there was this thing like where they wanted them to go into the big gym. Well, gyms are noisy.
Yeah.
And I guess for some babies, they've been taken to gyms their whole life. And so they're acclimated to the sound of the noise. Yeah, my kids both were like, what is this? Why are we here? And it's freaking loud.
Yeah.
They were not a fan. Like, seriously, not fans. And so they would say, like, well, what do you... Like, we'll get there, but it's going to take a little bit. Can he just stand outside the gym for a while? Like, let him stay. He'll eventually go in once he sees you guys are in there having fun. But gyms are loud and they are noisy. Anyway, I'm bringing this up because, one, it was just 4th of July, which I got to celebrate with my 17-year-old, who now loves the 4th of July, and my 26-year-old neurotypical child, who now loves the 4th of July. Like, but the point is, like, you do have to do the hard And
Oh, yeah.
here's the thing about exposure and inclusion and independence. If you're teaching your kids to be independent, if you're wanting your children to be exposed to a lot of different things, and actually I would say this transcends all things, you have to do the hard stuff. And when I say hard, I just mean there's a pretty good chance that you are going to get stuck in a situation as an adult that you're like, oh, oopsies. Oh, oopsies. Like, and I actually, we were at convention one time. And so I take Elliot everywhere. And anyway, Elliot had never met someone who he could not tell if they were a boy or a girl.
Okay.
So we meet this lovely woman, and at a VIP reception, mind you, with the head of Global, Gigi's Playhouses, all there. Elliot's with me, you know, and she very nicely introduces herself. And Elliot cocks his head to the left and cocks his head to the right. And he's like, are you a boy or are you a girl? And my heart stopped.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's not a question as an adult that
No.
you ask. Or,
No.
you know, and yes, he's a child, but I'm like, oh, please don't be offended. Please don't be offended. Please don't be. And anyway, she was lovely. You know what I mean? Like, she absolutely was lovely, and she answered his question, and it was a valid question
Yeah.
from a little kid. But you can say, well, what does that mean about the exposure piece is really good. I mean,
Yeah.
and it was good from, and
Absolutely.
it's no different than, you know, when you take your kid to the grocery store in the tri-state area. Like, there are questions that children ask that Olivia met a little person when she was little and was so confused because she's like, Dad, they're the same size as me. And Tony is like,
Oh, God.
oh God, you know what I mean? But then, you know,
Stop talking.
and well, but, but luckily,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh,
in
yeah.
this case, the little person said, yes, I am, you know, and then said, you know, this is the way God made me. And they had a good conversation. So I can't tell you that as an adult, you aren't ever going to have these exposure moments where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, you know what I mean? Because you are. I mean, it's not, it kind of makes you, and here's the deal. Some people would bite your head off if that happened. I mean,
100%.
like, so
You're dead on about all of it. I have one quick one, and then we'll go to break. So my twins are very, let me give you a hug. They're like all, like, I don't know. It's been really the last year where they will walk up to someone totally random, never seen them before in my life. I know have never seen them before, and we'll just go give them a hug. Or walk up to them, stand there and go, what are you doing? And like, just ask. And I'm like, oh God, like, okay, oh, sweetie, come on over here. Like that's enough. But the funniest thing, and we've been very lucky, every person that they've done that to has been the sweetest ever. Recognizing that, again, like all of a sudden one of the twins goes up and gives a hug. And I'm like, oh God, like you don't know who this person is. Like, I don't know who this person is. What is going on right now? And they will literally kind of, you know, do a little hug tap and go, oh, thank you so much for that. And you could tell like the joy on their face of just like, wow, like maybe they needed that. I don't know. And then, you know, when they ask, what are you doing? Like, they're like, oh, well, I'm doing this, you know, or whatever. And it's very cool. But in the moment, I'm just like, please, no, leave the nice lady alone. Like, let's just go over here. And I've had that a couple of times in the past year, and it's been weird. It's like, what are you doing? And again, they're loving kids.
Well, but and here's the thing: they're learning independence.
Yeah.
They're learning how to address, and you know, but it's as a parent, you're sometimes
okay, like let's not do that.
However,
Yeah.
they can't learn if
Right.
you don't allow them the opportunity to have that kind of level of exposure,
100%.
and that's the same piece. And if you truly want to have, in my opinion, kind of successful adults, you have to kind of allow it and encourage it, even though, with all due respect, sometimes it's uncomfortable for the adult.
100%.
Anyway, when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about 4th of July, about exposure, about encouragement, about all those different pieces. But for now, this is #everyone talking about #everything. Good Sunday morning. This is hashtag everyone talking about hashtag everything. I'm Kate Doherty with the Radical Ryan, Practically Perfect Penny, and lovely Laura McReynolds.
There she is.
There we go. Have poofed and left us, but we're doing okay. And one of the things we've been talking about is exposure and 4th of July and the importance of fully, acclimating all these things. And actually, weirdly, when we were on break, so Ryan and I had a rather fun conversation.
That's right.
However, it piggybacks onto something that actually I talked about it at the Downcountry meeting the other day. We were reviewing the workshops that are going to be at the convention. And one of the there are several different workshops at the convention. One is on puberty for girls with disabilities and or Down syndrome. One is on puberty for boys, with Down syndrome. And another is on healthy sexuality for people with Down syndrome and other disabilities. And you can say, why is that so important and why are you talking about it on the radio? Well, it is really important, people.
Yeah.
And one of the things that if you're a grandparent and you're listening to this, or if you're a parent and you're listening to this, and you have little people, I know that for some people talking about these things is extraordinarily uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
I do. I mean, I'm sure Ryan in his 27-year-old life is thrilled to be talking about this with 51-year-old me because cannot fathom more.
Love it.
However, it is vitally important.
Yeah.
Vitally important for the safety of your children that when you refer to your body parts, you use the appropriate names.
Yep.
Please do not use little pet names for their body parts because if they are around someone else, those other people do not know what those body part names are. And if they say they're Johnny Hurts, for example.
Or
I don't know what their Johnny Hurts. I don't know what you're trying to tell me. Now, I've been around kids enough. Maybe I can attempt to figure it out. However, you are putting your children at risk if you aren't using appropriate names for that. So it's one of those things that sometimes I think as adults, we have to get over our comfort level.
I mean, 100% because, and again, I won't go into complete detail. I mean, the field my wife works in, she works for Advocacy Network for Children here in Quincy and is a CASA coordinator. And, they deal with abused and neglected kids. And just from, typical, atypical, whatever, like it is, like you're saying, it's so important to know the proper names. As much as, again, my kids are 3. And yeah, it's not, it's weird having to say the names. But again, it's important for them to know it. Because you hope that it never leads to anything bad, but just in general, it's important for them to know it.
Wait, okay, and it is. I mean, for a plethora of reasons, and we're talking about independence, we're talking about exposure. Actually, quite frankly, for typical and non-neurotypical children, it is really important that you start at a young age. This is something I talked about. Actually, at the meeting the other night, and people sometimes think I'm crazy when I say that, yes, you need to talk to your 3-year-olds about these things. You need to talk to your little people about these things. And I recommend, and people, again, I'm used to being made fun of at this point in time. If you have a 4-year-old, then I recommend you go, a 4-year-old little boy, I recommend you go to the session on puberty for young men with Down syndrome. If you have a 3 or 4-year-old little girl, I recommend you go to the session on puberty for women with Down syndrome. And you can say, well, why do you recommend that? They're so little, they aren't there yet. Well, because there's building blocks. There are building blocks, and if you wait until they're 10, 11, 12 to put those blocks in place, then you very well may have a problem with some of these different things. However, if you start early and you work with them and you use appropriate names and you talk about who is allowed to, that this is what a doctor does, this is these things are appropriate, your level of success, it's astronomically improved. And in my other life, when school's in session, one of the things I do is I work with parents of little kids, 5 and under. And one of the things that this year I was really blown away with, and I actually hadn't thought about it before, but you know me, I am a big, like, I'm all about encouraging independence and this,
Right.
that, and the other. And so one of the questions I ask is, what's your mommy's name? Or, you know, what's grandma's name? I would say approximately 90% of the little children could not tell me their mommy's name or their daddy's name or grandma or grandpa's name.
Really?
And I'm like, oh my goodness.
I'm actually
So-
not surprised by that, but I'm curious to know why is that important?
Well, so
From
one-
what you're
okay,
talking about. Yeah.
So let's say I've
Please.
taught my kid to be independent and they're 4 or, you know,
Yeah.
and so they go to put their money in a soda machine and maybe they get turned around and they get lost.
Mm-hmm.
So the child is turned around and lost or for whatever reason. So someone, a nice lady, a nice this, finds them. I need my mommy. Okay, who's mommy? Who's mommy?
Mm-hmm.
Mommy does no good.
Yeah. That's
I mean,
fair.
and you can say, oh, well, the child shouldn't have. Well, okay. If you're listening to
Right.
this show and you have a kid, does that, well, that child shouldn't have. That they do things they shouldn't have.
yeah.
I mean, you can
happens.
turn around in a grocery store and a thing, and they could have been right there, and then and you're totally freaked out because suddenly they aren't where they're supposed to be, and you were right there. You just turned to look at the Bloomin' Cheerios, and
Yeah.
they aren't.
They're not there.
They aren't there. You
Yeah.
weren't on your phone. You were this. You were trying to decide whether you wanted Cheerios or, you know, whatever Golden Grams. And oh my gosh, where's my kid? I mean,
Right.
that kind of stuff happens,
Yeah.
and but it is really important. Or here's the deal, Ryan. What if you have a seizure? What
Yeah,
if you fall
that's
down?
fair.
What if you crack your head? They have to call. I also have children who do not know how to use the phone.
Mm.
You say, what? No, they really are. They know how to play games. Teach them how to make a phone call.
Mm.
Their phone is a phone for a reason.
That's fair. Yeah.
So little people, if they can play a game on your phone,
Mm-hmm.
you can show them to hit a number that they can call for help. It doesn't have to be 911.
Just yeah.
Show them how they can call another human on that phone in case, God forbid, something happened to you.
That's fair.
Because accidents do happen. We as grown-ups fall down. I mean, I've broken my ankle before. I mean, like, I remember walking out of that house. I mean, like, if your kid's over there and they can't break, like,
Right.
there are situations that it's important. And so you can, yes, I realize that's exposure, but there are things we need to teach. And so if you're a grandparent, I highly recommend you teach them your name's Bill or Sally. And as far as I'm concerned, at least get them to know if they're Palmyra, if they're Quincy, if they're Emden, if they're Liberty.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get that, it's really important. I mean,
That's a fair point. I never would have thought about it. And again, these things that you learn as you go, but it makes sense. Again, and I know there may be some people who are like, oh, some of these are extreme. It's like, I get it. But unfortunately, like, things happen. And who knows what's going to happen? Nobody knows.
Well,
And
I
so
mean,
to have...
what if your kid goes with their aunt or uncle,
Right.
and there's a car wreck?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, God forbid, and they have to. So what? I mean, you can say, oh, well, it'll eventually. Well, eventually,
Yeah, but
you know,
when's that? You know,
when
yeah.
is eventually?
Yeah.
And what if they aren't with your family? They're with, you know, friends' family, and you're out of I mean, they have to know. They need to
The whole
know
thing, yeah.
proper body part names. They have to know their parents' names. They
Yeah.
need to know grandparents' names, or for God's sakes, I don't care Aunt Sally's name, but we've got to have some way, because if you're going to do the route towards independence,
Yeah.
which I think is as far as I'm concerned, independence is a holy grail for every child.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes with my 15-year-old, I wish I hadn't made her quite as independent, but she is, and it is the holy grail. It's what
Right.
you want for your children.
Yeah. You want them to
And,
grow, to blossom, to do certain things and grow as a person, you know, and independence is obviously the biggest part of that.
and
But yeah.
we're talking about Independence Day, so it seems like a very valid,
Very valid.
very valid piece.
No
Were
doubt.
you waving at me because
was,
You
yeah.
were actually waving me?
I was
okay.
actually, yes.
So when I come back, I also want to talk about one of the things that now that Elliot's 17 that we do, or have done actually for the last couple of years, when we go for medical visits to increase his independence. Anyway, for now, this is #everyone talking about #everything. We'll be right back. Good Sunday morning. This is hashtag everyone talking about hashtag everything. I'm Kate Doherty with the Radical Ryan and the Practically Perfect Penny and the lovely Laura have Luftduft. This is the third and final segment show today, or of today's show.
There it is.
And we have been discussing Independence Day, independence, exposure,
Hand in hand.
all those different pieces, both what it looks like for a child with a disability and what it looks like for a quote unquote typical child, whatever that particularly means. Having said that, before we went on break, I said I wanted to talk about what it looks like for Elliot now when we go for doctor visits.
Absolutely.
And we were just at Mayo this week. And one of the things that we do, you have a check-in process at Mayo. And he goes up and says, you know, his name, Elliot Doherty, his date of birth. Oh, excuse me.
My
I got a
goodness,
yawn.
look at you.
I hope I'm not boring our listeners because
Wow.
I just had a heck of a yawn.
Seriously. It's all good, though. So he goes up
Anyway,
there and does the date of
he
birth.
goes up
all that,
there, and then we do go into doctor visits together. But Elliot talks to the doctors now.
Okay.
And he answers the questions. And when he is done all the way through speaking to the doctor and the doctor is done speaking with him, then if I have questions, I ask my questions at that point in time.
Okay.
But he runs his doctor visits. And as he's happy to tell you, next year, he's going to be 18.
Right.
And so one of the things that we've worked out is, the appropriate paperwork so that I can still go because, so that I can have, be able to have access to his medical pieces because otherwise I wouldn't have access. But I want him to be able to make those decisions. I mean, he needs to be able to make his medical decisions. And he is capable of it. Now, some people with Down syndrome aren't. Some people are. In his case, he very much is capable of going, yeah. Now, sometimes you might have to talk him into some things or fuse some things, but we started that process probably about 5 years ago is when we started the process of him beginning to run his appointments and his conversations with the doctor. And that doesn't mean that I don't ask questions at the end or that I don't, it's not willy-nilly, woo, Elliot. I mean, but
You built up to it.
We
You
have built up to
this.
it. And for the most part, he does an amazing job of advocating for himself. And you can say, well, is that scary for you? Well, of course it is. I mean, of course it is. It's scary for me with Ella. I mean, for goodness sakes, if you look at I can't even access Ella's medical anything now because of this way they changed all the rules. And it's ridiculous because she's like, Mom, I'm 15. Why do I have to... yeah, I know. You're the one who's got to grant me permission. Knock yourself out.
That's right.
It's great. Please.
But again, you build yourself up to it, and you do it not only with Elliot, but Ella, and we do it with, all of our kids to where you build up to the independent side of it. Again, for the twins, I mean, right now, again, they're 3, so they're nowhere near where your kids are at. But for us, it's like, okay,
But it starts now. I mean, it starts where your kids are. If you want your kids to do chores, to be independent, to do it starts now.
And it's funny because, again, for us, it's turned into okay, it's time to go to bed. We got to pick up our toys. We got to put them in our playroom and put them away. Do we do it every night? No, but we've started to kind of work that into the rotation. Do we do the whole, all right, we're at the table. When you're done, pick up your plate, put it away. Just all the little things to where they're doing it. And then when they do it, you get excited and then they get excited. And then it turns into I'm a big girl now or whatever, And so do they still have the tendencies of wanting you to do it? Yeah, they do. And am I a sucker sometimes? Absolutely. But trying to have them be as independent as possible is an important thing.
So you're going to laugh.
Yeah.
I always keep this list of age-appropriate chores for children from the 1950s.
Okay.
So 2 to 3, do you want to know what is age-appropriate? Because I think this is absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
Put toys in the box. stack books on a shelf, put dirty clothes in a little hamper basket, throw trash away, carry firewood because you got such a need for that these days.
Oh yeah, definitely, big time.
Folding washcloths.
Okay,
I thought that was a really good one.
that was a good one.
Learning to set the table. Fetching diapers and wipes, which you don't have, but I mean, like going and grab, and then dusting baseboards, like just kind of giving them a little I thought that was pretty good.
I think now I'm about 80% of those they've done. Yeah.
Well, and like
the firewood thing, we're not really at that point.
Yeah, well,
yet,
I mean,
but
like
we'll get there.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
because again, such a need for you.
Big
Maybe
time.
outside when you're in the
Right.
backyard, you can do
Right.
that. But just so you know, moving ahead, I'll text you to do this after.
Yeah, please.
4 to 5 is feeding pets,
Yep.
wiping up spills, putting away toys, learning to make the bed, picking up their room, which makes sense, learning to water houseplants, like sorting kind of clean silverware, forks, knives, spoons,
Okay.
preparing simple snacks like a little peanut butter and jelly sandwich or peanut.
Do some
I
of
would
that.
say we
Okay.
started cooking. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
little, not
Helping with that a little bit. Yeah.
using a handheld vacuum, clearing the dishes off the table,
Yeah.
and then beginning to learn to dry the dishes, which
Okay.
probably would be a little dangerous, but as long as your
little bit.
dishes were
Yeah.
plastic, maybe not
Not
glass.
too
you
bad.
can- this one. Disinfecting doorknobs. I didn't know we even did that. I thought that was a COVID thing, but hey, it
Right.
wasn't.
We're disinfecting
Anyway,
doorknobs all the time.
the list is actually,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, great.
And again, that was back in the what?
1950s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's so funny because nowadays, sometimes people say, what, your kids have chores? Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like, but so this breaks it down by like 2 to 3, 4 to 5, 6 to 7, 8 to 9, 10 to 11, and then 12 and up.
Okay.
And it's a really, as far as I'm concerned, it's a great list because it kind of takes, I think it is hard when you're a parent to know what is developmentally appropriate and what isn't developmentally appropriate. Because sometimes people will tell kids to do things and I'm like, yeah, okay. Whoa, you realize you just gave them 7 tasks and maybe we need to break that down into go get your shoes and coat, 2 tasks, not go get your shoes, your coat, and go to the car and like maybe slow it down if you
Yeah.
want it to actually be listened to.
Yes.
Because it's not developmentally appropriate for the 3-year-old to be able to do 7 tasks all at one little.
No. My kids are smart, but they're not that smart.
Yeah,
yet.
I mean, like
Not
they
there
they
yet.
will get there.
That's
but,
right. That's right.
But
No, it's true. I mean, it is. It's little things. It sounds like when you break it down just with that list, it sounds pretty simple. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like, again, are you expected to do all of that? No, not necessarily. But if you're doing a good majority of that,
and the other thing is, it doesn't have to be perfect.
no.
You can say what, like, let it not be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Let them do their attempt at it. Let it stand. You will survive. It
Right.
does not need to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
They will get better at it.
Yep.
The making the bed may not be ramrod straight, so let it not be perfect. They're learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay.
Well, the funniest thing, so like us, we've really done the whole thing where like, so they like to be what we call, naked babies when they come home.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to wear clothes. And so, and that's been a thing forever. And so they still do it, where now it's like, okay, if you want that, like, you can do it. Take your shirt off, take your shoes off, take your, your pants, whatever. Like, you can do that. You physically, and then put them away, And so we've started to do that. And also getting dressed in the morning, having the ability to do that. Does it take forever? Yes, it does. But, and there are times where you're running late, so you just kind of quickly do it. You boom, bang, done. Putting your own pull-up on. You're the one you do this, but it's really fascinating. And again, I say all of this, I'm nowhere nor is the wife perfect. You know what I mean? We're still growing and learning as they are. But when you do some of these things, I encourage you to kind of take a step back and watch them. Not just watching them, but watch them and like the joy that you can tell after they do it. Such a
big time.
Oh my God, such
Big
a
time.
simple task. They do it. Like when my twins put something in the garbage, they run back and they go, "Daddy, look what I did." And again, it's so simplistic, but they did it. And it's really cool.
Putting on shoes.
Yeah.
So when I got so much grief for this because I did not buy my kids tie shoes until they were like old enough to
Sure.
say, hey, I want to
Right.
tie my shoes. And you can say, why didn't you do that? Well, because they could independently at whatever, 2, 3, 4, when they were very little, they would go get
'em
their
on.
shoes and they'd get them on and we would be out the door. And versus me having to always stop. And so I felt that it was a way to teach them independence, that they could do that independently.
Yep. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm with you. I mean, we have the Velcro or like the slip on where it's just easy, you know, and
when they
love
want to
it.
tie their shoes, they will learn how to tie their shoes.
100%.
It is,
100%.
when they want the pair of tie shoes,
Yes.
it is not even a thing.
But again, take that step back and like watch them, because again, in the moment of it, oh my gosh, like you're probably sitting there going, oh my God, I could do this like so much quicker. We could just get it done. Like, and if you feel that, I get that. 'Cause
But it's
I've done
about
it.
independence.
Right. But what I'm saying is when you look back and step back and watch them get excited, you then remind yourself, okay, this is why.
I'm doing this
Right.
because of independence.
Exactly.
And yeah, I mean
That's
that
awesome.
that is absolutely. So I hope that you got that we tied the theme of independence
all came
exposure into
Right.
the 4th of July that y'all just celebrated, because independence does matter.
Big time.
And facilitating that for #EveryChild matters. For now, this is #everyone talking about #everything. You have a blessed week.